Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership and leave us a review on iTunes. For this week's Thoughtful Thursday, I want to talk about what we do as leaders that lets us be the leaders we need to be, that lets us show up as the leaders we need to show up as. And I'll think about, I kind of put this in my own perspective here. I know that I lead people better when other things in my life are going well. And that might seem obvious, people, when things are going well in your non-work life, then you don't have to, those things aren't occupying space in your head, and you can focus on doing a better job when it is time to do that work. But I'm not just talking about making sure that your house is in order, so to speak. I'm not talking about, that you lead better when you don't have, health problems or marital problems or money problems or whatever that is. That's obvious. I'm talking about the things that we need to do for ourselves as leaders that go above and beyond just making sure we don't have issues in our own personal life or that those aren't bothering us, but things that we do that add value to our lives that have nothing to do with work, just the things that we're passionate about. And so I think about, I like swimming, I like playing guitar. There are things that I do where if I'm not doing them, I notice a decline in my performance in a lot of other places. And when I do have them in my life and when I do them consistently, then I notice an increase in my performance in those other places. Yet they tend to be the first things that get cut out because they're the things that we don't have time for, so to speak. I don't have to, it might be 2 weeks since I've sat down with my daughter and we played guitar together. Well, because I didn't have time. Well, then I notice a decline in other things. And there's just something almost emotional that it's almost a reminder of why we do the things that we do. It's to be able to do these things when we're not working. And I don't know, there's just something about that resonated with me when I read it. Are there things that you do in your life that kind of that don't necessarily tie in one-to-one with your performance as a leader, but that if you didn't have them in your life, you'd see a decline in that performance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of the idea of filling your cup and finding things to do that bring you joy and that challenge you or that provides you with a sense of just, whether it's accomplishment or just enjoyment, whatever that might be. And of course, a lot of times people will answer the question and talk about spending time with family and significant others and pets and being outdoors. And absolutely, I think all those things, if that's what it is for you, then fantastic. And I also enjoy those things. I can also share with you, as a creative person, somebody who kind of has half my brain is very much in the game and about leadership and analytics and business and math and kind of connecting the dots of helping people to achieve their goals. I have my other half of my brain, which is kind of this wild forum of creativity and hip hop and ideas and things that I want to learn about and things that I want to do for myself. And so if I don't have an output or an outlet for that creative side of things, if I'm not doing something that is kind of tiring me out creatively, then it seeps into my other part of my life when I'm supposed to be focused and doing work and I have to have, it's kind of like people that go to the gym and you kind of burn off that energy, burn off those calories, let your mind rest, make your body tired so that you can go to sleep at night. It's the same thing for me. If I don't have a creative element going on, if I'm not putting my creative passion to use, then it starts to bleed into other spaces where it causes distractions, and it causes me not to be as focused because my mind is wandering somewhere else. And I know that if I have a place to put that mind wandering and creative spirit at a certain time or day or a project, then I can tell myself I'll get to that. And I'll take a quick note and I'll move on to what I'm supposed to be doing. If I don't have a place to put that creative spirit or energy, then it kind of overtakes my thoughts and I feel like I'm in the moment and I don't want to lose something. And so that's what happens to me.
Yeah, it's almost like your brain is saying, this is going to happen. So you're either going to delegate the space for it to happen or we're going to delegate it for you.
Exactly.
But there is no this isn't going to happen. It's just a matter of whether you have some sense of control over it and some sense of dividing splitting the pie up of the 24 hours of your day. If we the creative part of the brain, when we know that we have our space, and it might be between 4 and 7 o'clock this day, or we know it's going to happen. Okay, we'll bide our time. You get your work done, Lorenzo, and then we'll come out. But if that creative part of your brain looks at it and goes, wait a minute, you didn't carve out this space for us yesterday, and it looks like you're not about to carve it out for us today. Tomorrow, you're not getting any work done because we're just gonna we're gonna explode onto your life, and you're gonna feel distracted the entire day because you haven't kind of had that outlet. I totally agree. Like there's this, it builds up, and it might be that on a particular day, there just isn't time for something like that. Like that's the real world. We don't necessarily have time to make sure that all of our passions fit time into every single day. But it has to be planned, and it has to be scheduled in a way that allows that to happen, even though it tends to be the first things that we cut out because we think of them as nice to haves as opposed to needs to have. They are needs to have. They are needs to have. Make no mistake about it. You won't do your job well unless you do these things well too, or have that outlet for it. So I don't want to make it look like a shameless plug, but you just published a graphic novel. We'll put a link to it if you want to go see it, but I don't want to belabor it too much because it's not, leadership related. But it is pretty cool for anybody who wants to check it out. And the fact that it is 300+% funded on Kickstarter in basically 48 hours means that a lot of other people have resonated with it also. But I want to ask you, what's the next thing you plan on doing in your life to kind of fill this creative space? But first, I'll give it up to a word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo, what's next in the creative space that kind of fills this bucket for you? Or what are the kind of the go-to things that you do to make sure that this bucket is filled when you have realized that your effectiveness as a leader and as an employee is better when you can check off these boxes?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And shameless plug, right? Go check it out. It's been a lot of times people ask me about these kind of creative projects, and they're just like, wow, like how do you find the time? Well, I'll tell you, this started about 3.5 years ago. That's how I found the time. Is like we tend to think about these things and like here's this graphic novel, we put it out on Kickstarter, it's being received really, really well. I've worked with an artist, like there's a story, but like it's been years and years in the making. And I think that sometimes we tend to feel like these projects that we want to get into are very immediate and right now, and I want to do this and I want it to be done. But I think I've learned over my course of my life that if I know that it's something I want to accomplish and I'm patient and I find the time when I find the time, like I said earlier, it allows me the space to know I can be creative without this overwhelming feeling of it has to be done right now. So, I think what's been cool about this project specifically is it's tied in some of the things that I just enjoy a lot, which is music and collaboration with other creative people, and a physical product or something that people can enjoy. Like those are cool things for me, and people experiencing something. Like I'm really into that, and I think that. As this has now been out there and people are talking about it, I want to do an audio drama with it. I want to take this graphic novel off the page and put it into like an audio drama. Why? Because I'm into podcasting, and that would be kind of cool. And I've worked with voice actors, and I know a lot of musicians and music and things like that. And then there's a second half to the story that I know. Again, I have it all laid out. I haven't written it completely yet, but I know what happens. I know how we get there. And so. I'm patient. I enjoy the work. It brings me joy. It's also one of those things where I plan on doing it. Let's say I'm like, I'm going to spend a couple hours doing that on Thursday night. And then one of my daughters is like, hey, I'm learning how to read, which is going on right now. Can we read this book or can we read that book? And all of a sudden that 2 hours that was planned for this type of work, gets absorbed by the family, and my daughter's wanting to read books to me as they learn. So like that's going to happen too, which is why I allow there to be time to exist, to know that this is a fun, creative outlet for me, but in a priority standpoint, it's not at the top of my life, but it's a place that I definitely need to make sure that I'm fulfilling so that I can show up in my other spaces fully involved and fully focused on the work at hand.
Right. And again, if that one Thursday where you end up reading with your kids as opposed to doing work on this, that happens. But if that happened the last 25 times that you had budgeted time for this, eventually it comes to a head where it's like, no, I gotta do this. And then that's when you start having to schedule out the other things so that you can focus on this thing as well. But I think one of the things that you said that I think resonates with me a lot, and I think when it comes to the answer to these questions for anybody listening right now, is it's a combination of there has to be an end game in sight, but you also have to not be doing it for that end game. You have to be doing it for whatever that journey is. So that you have to be able to find enjoyment in the process. But the process can't just be what it is. There has to be something, a culmination of it, or a final goal that you have to be working towards. Otherwise, you won't have the. It's really difficult to find joy in something creative that doesn't at least have an end game. It doesn't matter whether you are writing a song or painting something or doing a graphic novel or whatever it is that is creative. At some point, it has to be done. At some point, it has to be done. And so there's joy in the process and there's fulfillment in getting it done. But then you also have to know what's next. And if you found joy in the process, it makes knowing what's next so much easier, because all you have to do is find something that lets you do that same kind of process again. And if the joy was just in the culmination or the finished product, it's going to be a lot harder to do anything that takes a long time. You're gonna have to find things that you can accomplish in days rather than years. And so but if you're a leader of people, this is important, really, really important to add these things to your life so that you can focus better on the things that you need to do when it's time to do them. Having these things that you can have in your life is a really important way to do that.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.